Sterling is the best G10 performing currency so far in 2018. Sterling dollar has recently breached $1.40 and remains firmly in the upward trend channel. The pound is also gaining against the yen, but it's stuck against the euro. What's happening and why? More importantly, is the long sterling dollar trade still in place? Martin Arnold joins us now. He's FX and macro strategist at EFX Securities. Martin, welcome. What's been the driver so far this year for sterling, especially against the dollar? We've been talking a lot about weak dollar, but some of it seems to be impetus for sterling itself.
Yeah, I think it's very much coming from the sterling side of the trade. There's a couple of things, and sterling, as you know, is very much tied to volatility. We're seeing volatility quite low in the FX market in 2018. It's very much a steady as she goes, so that's a positive for sterling. But we're also seeing on the political front and the Brexit front some better noises coming from Prime Minister May's government. She's slowly getting the house in order, and some of the other EU leaders are talking a more positive tone re the Brexit negotiations.
Yeah, let's take a look at the chart, because I think this is interesting for if no other reason other than just to follow exactly where we are. We've been following this upward trend channel. In fact, after the jobs data we got out on the morning of Wednesday, which was pretty much in line with expectations. You can see now, referencing back, we're now midpoint on the way we saw down on that day of the Brexit vote back in June 2016. Are you happy still long on this trade? I mean, it was upward trend channel would indicate that this upward resistance point is going to rise anyway, but it seems like we're going to breach that anytime soon. 150, is that where we go?
I think I'd be cautious on making sort of prognostications about 150, because it has been a very strong move, and the investor positioning in the futures market does seem to be becoming more stretched. So if we start to see a bit more softer economic data, as we saw last week in the retail sales, and if that follows through to the GDP numbers, then I think the central bank, Governor Carney, may be more reluctant to be talking a hawkish tone, and that could put pressure on sterling.
Yeah, talking about central bank activity against the yen, the Japanese, of course, still have negative deposit rates, but it's rising as well against the yen. Is there anything worth talking about that trade, or is it just against sterling?
No, I think it's a little bit of both. We saw that Governor Kuroda at the Bank of Japan came out with a very neutral policy prognostication. He was sort of keeping the status quo very much so, as you mentioned, negative deposit rates, and keeping that 10-year target at 0.1%. So they're very much in wait and see mode, because inflation expectations are still very depressed there.
Yeah, would you be happy still along this trade as well? The dollar yen, it's been a recent breakout here at that level. We had a resistance at 153.85. Here we are at 154.50.
I'd be very much more positive about sterling yen than cable, because I think on the other side of the trade, the yen and the dollar side of the trade, they're in very much different circumstances from the central bank perspective, and I think going forward, we see dollar strength because we see inflationary expectations starting to rise and likely to break out in 2018, and that's going to warrant more aggressive action from the Fed compared to the very cautious nature of the Bank of Japan.
Yeah, what's all this going to mean then for sterling euro? As I said at the top, this has been a trade which really hasn't gone an awful lot of places in the last few months or so. Yeah,
I think it's made some moves. Sterling has made some moves against the euro, but obviously not as big a moves against what was seen in cable, and that's for similar reasons. We've seen very good economic numbers coming out of the eurozone, as we've seen on this side of the channel, and investors are very sort of confident that the ECB is going to be quite hawkish in 2018. We're sort of on the different side of that, and we think that euro trade is starting to become very stretched, and investors are starting to get ahead of themselves in how aggressive the ECB is going to be.
Yeah, we'll get on to the euro specifically in another interview with you today as well, which viewers can catch up with on the IG platform. But when looking at sterling euro, you mentioned Brexit earlier on. I mean, these are the two sides that are coming together in the Brexit negotiations. I keep hearing from a lot of the commentary is that, oh yeah, we've got looking like a good deal against Europe. It's not all about that, is it? It's all about a mutually appreciative deal. When you get one side winning in a trade deal, you always get one side losing, and that's not what anybody wants to see. You get a good deal out of the Brexit negotiations of both sides. Is that sterling positive against the euro? Is that euro positive? Where should we trade this?
I think it's more sterling positive, and like you say, you do need a good deal for both parties, and we've started to see some more positive comments about those trade deals, despite what Michel Barnier's quite strong stance is. And because I think we saw the significant weakness on after the referendum on the sterling side, I think that is likely to be more positive for sterling when we're hearing about more beneficial deal.
Yeah. Okay. So as we start at the top, one of the best performing currencies in G10 so far this year, sterling. Do you see that continuing?
I see it continuing against the Japanese yen, but I'm more cautious against the dollar because we're going to likely see some more aggressive movements from the Fed, potentially later in the year after we see how much of a leader Jerome Powell can be. But against the euro, I think it's likely to still sort of tick higher.
Yeah. Okay, all right, Martin, it's a pleasure. Thanks indeed for joining us. Martin Arnold is FX and macro strategist at EFX Securities, taking a look at the value of sterling as where we go. Here we are in towards the end of January, as we look out to a year when some central bank activity could well steer the foreign exchange markets. Subscribe to IG for educational content, company insight, financial analysis and expert commentary.